Progress bar. Okay, it says we're live.
Oh, excellent. All right, should we wait till we actually see it up on the YouTube, or should I just go?
I think go. I think it's on a 20-second delay, so it'll show up.
Sure.
Fingers crossed.
All right, everybody. Well, we are here with the cast and crew of What We Found. We're doing a live Q&A, but before we get into it, we're going to treat this like a regular episode of our podcast, Making Movies is Hard, and we're going to do an intro. So this is what's going to happen right now. So welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Alrik Bursell.
I am Liz Manashil.
Today we have a very, very special show. We are doing our first ever live Q&A for the film What We Found, written and directed by Ben Heckernell. And Ben is here with us today, along with a bunch of the cast and crew members. We've got Jordan Hall, Yetide Badaki, Una Lawrence, Brandon Lorisquente, Julian Shatkin, and maybe or maybe not Elizabeth Mitchell. We're not sure yet. She might be coming later. But yeah, this Q&A is for people who've only seen the movie, because we're going to just talk about everything about this movie. We're going to spoil things. We're going to talk about big plot points. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you should go ahead and rent that movie right now or buy it and then come back to this
and just regret it.
And listen and regret it. Yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So without any more blither blather, let's go and talk to Ben about What We Found. So Ben, tell us, where did this movie come from? Where did the idea and the kernel for this film, sprout from?
Making indie films is hard, as this is why your podcast is named that. So I'm going to take a 4-year journey and try to boil it down into a minute. But basically, I'd done some other projects, but I, as a writer-director, done 2 kind of indie character dramas. One played at South by Southwest, one played at Seattle, but they were in a certain little world. And I wanted to do something with a little more genre in it. I wanted to do, for lack of a better term, a more commercial movie. I grew up in Baltimore, and back in 2015, when I started this kind of journey, the podcast Serial came out. And this isn't based on Serial. It's not a direct port or retelling of that real life story, but Serial happened at Woodlawn High School. I went to Catonsville High School, and they're about on Google Maps 3.5 miles apart. So I was I got very much wrapped up in that story, and I really thought it could be a really interesting thing to kind of combine my experience of growing up in that same area with a murder mystery that was a similar type of story. Because in that real life case, a girl, Heyman Lee, went missing, and they suspected her boyfriend did it. And the podcast is really about whether her boyfriend did it or not. But anyways, that was part of the genesis, was just I got wrapped up in that world, and I started kind of picturing this story. And the story, I think, is kind of a combination of my own kind of growing up and coming of age experiences. I definitely got bullied in middle school and stuff. I definitely went to the woods with friends to run away from our parents. I definitely smoked weed. That's out in the record now, I guess. I can't, I'm president, maybe I can. But yeah, and then mixing that into this more genre-based story that was, reminiscent of things like Stand By Me, but hopefully we were bringing something new and contemporary to it. And so that was kind of the genesis. That was kind of the raison d'etre of what it was going to be and why it was going to be. And then obviously there's some thematics that I really care about in this movie. And I think as I wrote the story, besides kind of hitting those genre beats of trying to make it really fun and accessible and, and moving, I also wanted to thematically get into a few, kind of issues, which I think hopefully we get into a bit in the movie too. So that was the idea of where it started. And then began a long road of, the whole of fundraising and putting it together and casting, and until now it's out, which is, beautiful.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the casting, and then any of our actors, if they remember things differently, starkly differently, can they just jump in and correct Ben?
Casting this movie was, one thing I have to give huge props to Barbara McCarthy and Alice Merlin, the casting directors. They, every time, as all these fine people can attest, anytime you make an indie film, there's never enough time and money. So it always comes down to putting in that extra amount of work. And they really did. Some people were very easy to cast. Brandon was the first audition we had for Clay. I'm not kidding. So we had 2,000 auditions or whatever. He was number one, the first video I saw. And literally Barbara told me, because I sent an email do we need to keep going? And she was like, that was the same thing we said when we saw him audition. He was literally the first one. So that was really
It's so funny. You never want to be the first one. That's what you're told at every casting workshop you take. Don't be the first one. Wow.
But in this case, it worked out. I mean,
Unless you're Brandon.
we
In
watched
the one case.
we watched other auditions, but yeah, Brandon was perfect. Una was, I mean, we had like 6,000 submissions for Holly, and Una was right at the
Wow.
top of the, because there was just, I guess there are a lot of, people.
You never told me that. That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
We had some more submissions for Holly than any other part. We had thousands. I don't know how Barbara and Alice even,
Wow.
and they probably didn't watch all of them, sadly. But yeah, but I found, I mean, Una and I did an early Skype chat that, obviously went well. And I mean, yeah, you guys know about your perspective, but I guess I will say the one thing I wanted to comment on was, Jordan, this is Jordan's first film. And so, we really went out and searched for Marcus. We saw a lot of people, I think just because of, some of the social issues in this country, there were many fewer submissions for Marcus than there were for Holly, because I think, it's just there are fewer families that can afford to have a 14-year-old kid who's like a full-time actor in that part of the population. I kept pushing them to keep looking. And basically we looked at a few people who had done TV and had done this and that. And, Jordan was a Broadway actor. So basically Jordan was not like the first person we saw. We kept peeling the layers of the onion. And then basically, we found this video of Jordan's first audition, and it was great. And he, I think in some ways kind of was like Marcus, but obviously in some ways wasn't, but he had that same kind of intellectual curiosity kind of part of him. And basically, I mean, Jordan, we did a few rounds of auditions, right? Because I definitely kept asking you to try things because you had great stuff, but you also weren't that experienced. So we did a few layers of auditions until Jordan won the role.
Yeah, we had a few meetings, and I remember you telling me, you were like, yeah, it's between you and a couple other guys. And I was always like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And then I think there was we had a Skype call the day before I got the call that I got Marcus. And you were basically like, yeah, it's between you and one other person. And I was like, oh my God. And then the next day I got the call and I was like, yay.
I think I was probably, I'm sorry I was mean. I was probably putting a little pressure on you too to kind of see how you'd handle it, to be like, look, it's down to you and somebody else, we're going to do a scene again. I mean, sorry, I was gonna ask a question, but you guys asked the next question.
Well, I mean, we actually have a question from the YouTube page that's about Una. A lot of people are asking about Una, Julian, and Jordan, and their chemistry, and if you guys are still friends, and what your first impression of was each other. If you're willing to kind of weigh in, it'd be great to hear that.
Yeah, no, totally. We all are still connected. We all still check in on each other, but Una and I have become the bestest of friends, and we totally hang out with each other all the time. We were literally with each other 2 nights ago, and whenever we have I don't know, we are always together for the last couple of years, and actually it started with this movie, and we kind of just stayed connected. But Julian, we also check in on him, and we also make sure he's good, and we also right, we send him photos when we're together, we check in, so we're all totally still connected, and we have fun.
Yeah, we had so much fun on set. We specifically, we would always play Nerf Wars in the hotel because the hotel was shaped so it was shaped like a square, but right in the middle was a lawn and a pool. So we would circle around the hotel and play Nerf Wars. It was intense, but yeah.
That was pretty fun. I remember those.
Did you do any chemistry casting with the three of them together to make sure that they were going to work as really close friends? Or did you just kind of, you knew they were all good on their own and you're they're going to work together, no problem?
Did we ever have you guys cross read with each other? We did rehearsal, which was great. But before that, I don't think we did, right? Am I remembering that?
No, we didn't. We kind of met each other and we Instagram DM'd each other and was like, hey, I heard you got this. Hey, I heard you got this. And when we showed up, we kind of just hung out.
Yeah, it's that's one of the sad things about indie film is you just don't have. I remember actually with Una too. Una has these big agents, and we had put in the contract whatever it was 2 days of rehearsal, and I would have loved to have more, but I was so scared of her agents. I was not going to be let's meet another so anyway, so yeah, that's one of the indie film is I would have loved to have more of a chemistry read or have more more time to, but you don't have the money and the budget, and so you're trying to get everybody together just for a certain. I mean, I remember Yatide flew in the night before you started shooting, right? You only have so much time, so time's one of the things.
I think it was pretty much the day of, wasn't it?
Maybe. Did you do a night flight and
the hospital scene happened then? I remember just being okay, we're going for this. We're doing this now, eh?
Did you arrive that morning?
I believe so. Yeah, it was something like that. But then
No.
We're all.
No.
And we have a question for her too. Yatine, come back.
She'll come back. She'll come back.
Oh, there she
Oh,
is.
sorry. Did I freeze?
It
Just for
froze
a
for a
second.
second. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'm back. Okay. How much of that did you get? None of it. Okay.
I mean, sorry, not that.
No,
Whatever
I
zero
think
is.
I'm pretty sure I arrived that day because I remember my head was still, I'm pretty sure I was still jet lagged. I think I came from Toronto and
Right, you were. Yeah.
I was in LA.
And the while she's frozen and the oh there she oh no she's frozen and for the audience knows the scene we're talking about is the hospital scene, which is like the end of the movie, this big scene which was beautiful. And I remember Una's reaction. I already knew it was a great like performance when we were doing it, and I remember at the end I remember Una turning and just kind of quietly, I don't know if you said it to someone or to yourself, Una just goes, damn, like after like the second take or something. And I was like, that was so good. It was like, you know, game respecting game. Like Una was just like respecting like Yatide's skills, and it was awesome.
I was just sitting there respecting Una's skills because I mean, and every single one of you, like Jordan, I remember in the kitchen and I'm just watching you and I'm just blown away by the lovely work that you were bringing. And you know, every time I got to get on that set with somebody, they were showing me whole new things, running circles around me. So
Well,
thanks for the lessons, y'all.
Yatide, we do have a question
Thank
for you, which
you.
is, oh, sorry, please go on, Jordan.
No, it's okay.
Well, someone wants to know, how did you prepare for the role, and did you have a personal connection with it?
It was actually interesting. Where it all started was a letter from Ben and him talking a bit about the background and the personal connection that he had with all of it. And it was from there, just actually we spent a lot of time chatting about our backgrounds and what nerds we are huge nerd, sorry. And
True.
just talking a lot about what influenced all of this story that came forward. And so I have to say, I pulled a lot from Ben. I mean, not just from the written page, but from Ben himself. And then I always like to do, you know, random bits of research, but things like what it feels like getting shot.
What a
Thanks to-
wonderful dramatic pause.
Yeah.
Really solid
Yes.
one.
I mean, you know, research, man, it's all got to go in there. And I have to say one of the best parts of it, though, was just meeting Jordan. And I mean, your performances are just so pure. And it just felt immediately like, yeah, this is my son. And I'm not going to let anything happen to this guy. So yeah, it was a combination of all those things.
So I have a follow-up question for you, Yatide. Just, you know, you talked about you flew in that morning, you have this huge monologue, this like really emotional, deep piece that like is really amazing. Like, how do you get yourself in the headspace to, you know, do a scene like that when you've just arrived on set that day and you're just meeting everybody for the first time?
Well, first off, it always starts with the writing. You know, that's one of the things I look for.
Just coming back
The
as soon as we
monologue
talk.
you had written was just so lovely. Did I pause again? Let me
You
know. Just give me a, you know, signs, signals. But it was so touching. I remember even the first time reading it, I started tearing up. And then the other part is I always actually rely on nerves. I think I'm going to do the dorky, you know, theater thing and quote actors that I adore, but, you know, Dame Judi Dench talking about nerves being the generator. And I did show up and was, you know, it was fuel to play with what was happening there. And then there's Una. I got to keep going back to it. I mean, it's a wonderful thing as an actor to look into another actor's eyes and just see the full life of not only the character but the world. And you were present every single moment, and that helped to ground me in there.
I could say the same exact thing about you. I'm always talking to Jordan about like how your performance is like one of my favorites. Just like that scene, you like, it's just captivating. You're just captivating as an actor. Sorry.
Oh, now you're just gonna make me cry all over again. Thank you.
I actually have a question for Ben and Una, and it's about what aspect of Holly's character would you like to have seen more explored?
More explored? I don't know. Yeah, Una, what do you think?
I think like there obviously, I feel like there wasn't maybe enough time in the movie to explore this, but I feel like the relationship with her parents, maybe, because I think that was a very complex thing that had a lot of potential. But yeah, that would probably be my answer. Yeah.
It's funny, there for many drafts there was, when you have the scene at the sunset where you and Jordan talk about what happened at home, there were, for many drafts, that scene was in the movie. And then I cut it because, I was getting notes to kind of focus more and more on the kids. I mean, obviously there are a lot of characters in this movie. We haven't even gotten into like the police side of things and that much of like Clay and Brandon. So I mean, so I ended up cutting it exactly for time and to keep things moving. But, that was always in my head, and I definitely could have there definitely could have been a different movie too, where this was kind of more Holly's, there's so many characters that there are definitely different versions of this movie. And in this case, it was Marcus's, we saw more of his home life, and it was important to have Holly's home life in there too, but there was only so much time. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I could definitely make like a 3-hour version of this movie where I went into so many more things, but you have to keep it moving. And in the end, it was this mystery movie. They wanted to get to this, climax and everything. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And luckily, I mean, the great thing was you bring so much in that scene at the sunset that I think it does work in terms of like the audience does know. It's almost a good thing if they're hungering for more. I'd like to give it to them, but it's always a good, because you do know what happened. And the most important thing is we're seeing Holly's reaction, and Holly's like, the lead character, not her parents. So I think, that was part of the reason why we kind of used that strategy too. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree.
So I have like thousands of more questions for Ben, but I'm just going to keep it going here. So Jordan, I wanted to ask you about what your experience was like while working on this movie. This is your first movie, and not only are you like, one of the lead characters, I mean, geez, your character has to do everything. You've got stunts, you've got like action sequences, you've got all these like really intense emotional scenes. You're riding bikes, you're jumping in rivers. Like, talk to us what it was like to work on this movie, especially that was like so demanding of you as an actor, and just physically and emotionally.
I think it being my first time, I was really nervous, and I was really nervous and excited because it was so much. Like, as you said, there's a lot that Marcus does. There's a lot that he goes through. So I think it was a really good experience having somebody like Ben to be there and like kind of hold my hand. And I also got to work with like all of these really, really cool people that were super supportive of me and knew it was my first time, and all helped push me on screen and like behind the scenes, and they were just rooting for me. So it was just so much fun to kind of have a squad and a rally of people that kind of helped me get through this, because they knew it was a hard role. It really was. And I think it's super cool to kind of have people that you can rely on and lean on, especially when you're shooting.
Nice.
I wanted to follow up with a question to Brandon and hear, what drew him to the role, and how does he see the character that he played?
Well, I think what Ben said, I auditioned for the role, and I had no idea that I was the first one to go in. But I do remember preparing for this. It was a big, intricate scene. I think it was the scene where I walk in and I start picking on Una's character and Jordan's character, and there's like a bunch of people at the campsite, and I had like basically like prepared the scene as in my apartment, my tiny apartment. That way, like when I was there, I could envision everything that was happening in the scene. And like Yatide said, I think I really love when like the nerves fuel me, and I think that's why like I think I prefer going into rooms, because you get to actually talk to real people, and like you get to I guess you don't get to second guess your decisions. You just go in there and you kind of perform, and you kind of leave it all in the room, instead of like going back to your self-tape and saying, I can do that better. It was like I let those feelings fuel me for sure. My outlook on my character, I didn't like him as a person because growing up, I knew people like him who picked on other people. But at the same time, you also have to look at him differently because of, either his circumstances at home or what's happening in his personal life. So I try and find, especially with Clay, I tried to find something that I could relate to him, or I tried to understand him from a more, human aspect rather than just deem him as just, oh, he's the bully. I tried to find layers to his character. And I love the fact that like Ben kind of like tied in his home life into the movie, where like you see how he's like just like a normal person. He has a dog and he loves his family, but yet he has the social pressure or the pressure from his mom at home telling him, listen, if you don't make it into college, if you don't get quote unquote a big boy job, you're out, to fend for yourself. So there's this pressure, and I think that pressure forces him to make decisions that he really didn't really want to make, and he kind of in a way got forced into. And unfortunately, it ended up affecting his love life, his girlfriend. But yeah, like Itide said, I really owe a lot to Ben because he was there for any questions that I had regarding the character of the film, or just anytime I was lost. Because we shot this film, I think I was there for 3 weeks, but it seemed like it went so much quicker. And I was just trying to gather my bearings the entire time. But Ben really was there to assist all of us, and I appreciate that.
I mean, that's my job. But yeah, it was one of the things, we shot this in 3 weeks, which is crazy. Again, it's indie film. If we had, I originally wanted to shoot it in 5 or 6 weeks, my like original plan. We ended up doing it in 3 because that's what we had the money for. So and it's kind of a miracle what we pulled off in a lot of ways. Oh, yeah. But that's my job, is to kind of keep things straight. And I wrote the script, so it's kind of easy too, because like I've lived with it for years. One thing I love about Clay, one of the things that I don't know if audiences totally, maybe on like a second watch through, you'll even appreciate it more. But for me, a big moment is when we see Clay's home, that we meet him through Marcus's eyes. And he's kind of this, this scary figure. He's a senior. He's rumored to be a drug dealer. He's involved with Cassie. We don't know how. But then when we see his home life, we see this other, the whole idea was to play against expectation, was how even the bully, when you meet them, has other stuff going on you have no idea about. And the fact that, Clay is actually, I mean, Grant also has a very nice house, but Clay has like the nicest. It was kind of important. I was like, he should have the nicest house in the film, and that's kind of this thing that you expect him to be one thing, or the audience maybe expects him to be one thing because of their own thoughts and kind of prejudices and the way we're conditioned, and then we meet him and he's something else entirely, and he has this pressure coming from his mom, and like that's his mom's this like successful lawyer. And so he's dealing drugs actually as a way to kind of like be like, well, I'm going to be successful, but in my own way. And in my neighborhood, that's a way to do it, which, not to like, this movie is kind of based on me growing up, and like, yeah, there was lots of drug dealing going around like in my community. And I'm not trying to over dramatize it. Like, obviously, I'm here, I grew up okay. It's not like, it wasn't a war zone or anything, but it was just something that was in the background. And so that was why I kind of put that in there, there are definitely people I knew growing up who that was just a logical choice, because the way this country is structured, sometimes there's always opportunity, and that is an opportunity. And then obviously for Clay, then there are consequences to that, and he gets involved with certain people who are more dangerous than he expected. And this is a spoiler thing, but bad things happen eventually. There are consequences for him. But for me too, I was going to say it, and you can comment on this a little bit if you want. He's definitely a gray moral era character, but he also goes on a journey, right? He starts in one place, but then at the end of the movie, he stands up for Marcus and is like, the boy walks. Like, he tells the other drug dealer characters, like, you're not going to hurt this kid. So for me, it was really important to show that kind of journey too, of Clay, like being someone who is getting into this world, but then when faced with a big moral choice, he kind of makes the right choice. So that was part of the journey for the character.
I think it also shows the power of love too, because it wasn't until really his girlfriend Cassie kind of put his back against the wall that he was like, no, they're fine. It goes to show you. I think, in my belief, I think every man needs a great woman behind him to kind of talk some sense into him, and he had Cassie.
So, Brandon, I have a kind of a follow-up question on that. Like, there's one point in the movie where you're sort of talking about what happened to Cassie and how terrible it was for you and how much it hurt you to have lost her in that way. And we kind of learn that, like, there's another side to Clay's character that we didn't know before. Like, can you just talk about how you got to that place and, delivered that scene and what that scene was like to act?
I asked Ben, and he was gracious enough to give me a second go at the scene. Because we shot it one day, and I I love the nerves, but I think just that day I was like so overwhelmed with just like, I wanting to be prepared and wanting for it to be right, and for some reason, like just that scene in specific when we shot it the first time, it didn't feel right to me. So I asked Ben. I said, "Hey, if we have time, towards the end of filming, can we shoot it again? If possible, can we do a reshoot?" And we did, and I'm so grateful for that, because it really like allowed me to sit in my thoughts about like just how not how I wanted the scene to come out, but just like Clay's intention in the scene and like what really matters to him, and it allowed me to break down the scene over the course of a few weeks rather than just shooting it on the fourth day, which is why like props to you, Tide, for like I didn't know the fact that she came in and shot that scene like the first day of filming. Like that's insane to shoot basically backwards. That's awesome, and I look up to people like that and people who I've worked with, like all of you guys. You guys brought it every day, and I'm just grateful that I got the opportunity to kind of do it again, to give it a second go.
Quick follow-up, Ben. Which one did you use?
Yes.
well, the second one and neither. So one thing about Yatide versus Brandon's is both of those speeches, monologues, cut to other stuff, other scenes happening over them talking. In Yatide's case, that was like maybe a page and a half monologue, so it was definitely big, and she memorized it perfectly, and it was awesome. And I actually, the first thing I showed to investors, people were kind of asking how the shooting was going. I just showed them a raw take of her like third take of that speech. It was just like, here's what we're doing, and they were like, wow, like non-edited, not because she didn't nail it. But Brandon's was like 3-page, because he's telling this whole story of kind of what happened to Cassie, and it's kind of for lack of a better, it's kind of the Agatha Christie moment of like, and then they were in the kitchen with the candlestick, and he's kind of laying out what happened. And so the idea was always to have footage over it. So yeah, the first, I kind of knew it would be tough to do it as like a one-take thing. I like to give actors that opportunity, so I definitely gave him the opportunity / tortured him by saying, let's do it as like a scene in a one take. But I kind of knew we'd be cutting away. So the first time, we kind of worked our way through it. It was definitely a bit rough. He, worked on it some more, got over the nerves a bit, whatever, came back and did a much better job. But I also knew we were always going to be cutting away to stuff. So we also in the ADR booth did stuff. And that was also my fault. I changed some things because as we edited, we wanted to clarify certain things. It wasn't giant changes, but it was like there were certain lines where we just clarified a little more what had happened to Cassie, et cetera. So we actually did 3 passes, first pass, then a second one on set, which most of the footage of him is from that second pass. But then we ADR'd some other lines that he was doing over the video, over the footage. So it was 3 put together.
Well, I have a juicy question. The love story between Holly and Grant evolved so naturally. How did Julian and Una handle that?
Well, I think that for me, I kind of always thought of Grant as a little bit of the Ron Weasley of this story, just kind of like, along for the ride and like, silly, goofy. I mean, in a lot of ways, like personality wise, he's very similar to me. So it really wasn't too much of a stretch. And I think that the relationship evolved fast. I mean, in my opinion, I think, Una and I got along great. And, it never felt hard. I don't know. It felt very natural.
Yeah, I think we all 3 clicked so well. So it was never like awkward at all. And like, I think Ben just created the relationship like so beautiful in the script because it's so innocent and it's so just like adolescent. And I think that it wasn't too hard to channel it. So,
yeah.
So a follow-up question for you, Julian. Like, you've got Marcus's character and Holly's character kind of going in different directions, and they're kind of active and they're sort of, trying to figure this thing out. And you're there like kind of this like rock, you kind of come back and you spend more time with them towards the end and you're there for them when they need you. What was it like to kind of be that character, that kind of connector piece, to kind of keep them more grounded?
I wasn't in so many of the action shots, all the falling in water and all the guns and everything. It almost felt to me like I was in a different movie from them, you know, living in this whole other world from them, which is not a bad thing. You know, it was interesting to see, especially watching the movie. It was just interesting to see like, oh, wow, this is what happens in the movie now. You know, like it's because I was very, not isolated, but like you said, I was kind of like the rock in that, like grounding them. You know, it felt supernatural. It really just wasn't any, because it really just felt like me. You know, Grant is so similar to me again, you know, and it is easy to ground them, you know, to have them as, you know, to be kind of the grounder and all of that. It felt natural. And yeah, it was interesting to see the movie after all that, though.
It was funny too. There was a thing that lasted in many cuts until one of the last cuts when I was getting ruthless and just cutting it down. And it was just like 45 seconds. But, you know, when they go to camp in the woods and we've had kind of some serious tenser moments, we just improvised them like hanging out together. So this is kind of before, when they walk into the woods, before the kind of scene with Una and Jordan on the hilltop at the sunset. And it stayed in for a long time. It was one of my favorite things, one of the hardest things to cut. It was very indie filmish, and in the end, we were kind of making a thriller, so I just had to cut it. But it was just like them playing. They found a worm, and I remember this moment where like Una kind of holds the worm up, and Jordan's like, "Ooh, like get it out of my face!" And they're playing this like name association game that kids play, and I'm too old to like. I mean, you guys are probably like, what concentration, right? That game or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Anyway, so this was in the movie, just this little montage of it for a long time, and then eventually I cut it. But my only point was that was not, the characters kind of melted away, and it was just that relationship was so honest, because it was just, we just literally rolled for like half an hour, and I just said just do stuff, and they did lots of stuff, and it was easy for them to just be friends because they were friends.
We're getting some pretty persistent questions about the river scene, so I think Ben,
Yes.
Jordan, can you address that? What was it like shooting the river scene? How did we handle the stunts, safety, all those, the nitty gritty?
Jordan first.
Okay. When I was talking to Ben about it before I had, you know, gotten it and everything, he was like, well, you know, there's a scene in the water, because he gave me the script to read and everything. So I was reading it, and he was like, well, there's a scene in the water. Like, can you swim? And I was like, absolutely not. I cannot swim. It's not something that I do. I was like, I can stand in the water if you need me to like do things like that. So we were kind of like building up to the day when we were going to do the water scenes. So when we finally got to set and we did it, there was this, she was actually a tiny Black woman, and she was just like me, and she had a little wig and everything, and she did it, and it was great, and it was super fun, but I was just, you know, chilling on the side.
So the wide shots of you standing in the river aren't you. That's a stunt double.
No, that is me. But like some other
okay.
moments. Yeah, some other moments aren't me.
Well, some of the wide ones, we did close-ups. Then we also did some extra shots and pickups. But we, in the real world, in the regular shoot, so in the world of the movie, Jordan was out there. He had wires. We had a little water safety team. The stunt coordinator had like, so we had him like tied by a wire, and we had someone downstream ready to like catch him. And I think in the movie almost it doesn't look that, I mean, hopefully it looks scary, but it doesn't look that scary, you know?
I mean, it was like, looked real to me, man.
Okay, good.
Like, God damn.
I mean, the spot where we actually had Jordan was like, you know, almost waist deep. It's moving really fast. It was like a rafting river. People like were coming down on rafts and stuff. Not during takes, but you know, in general, we were actually holding traffic. It was like holding traffic on the street, but it was like rafting. It was like, can you just wait up there for a minute, please? And then after the take, it was like, let him through. It was funny, but yeah, he was really in it, and we have a lot of footage of, you know, so he actually did do it. Yes, when Marcus gets swept away, it was a stunt woman, because we needed someone who was, you were at that point, you were 14 years old, you were like 4 foot, you know, 8 or whatever. It was like under 5 feet. An African-American 4 foot something woman. And she did a great job. And we had digitally went in and they digitally did little things where they kind of shaved her hair and like changed the nose and stuff.
No way.
Sweet props to them. They went in and like fixed stuff just to make it look more like him. But, you know, we did, it was really funny. I just always think it's a typical actor thing where, like, I don't know if anybody ever asked Jordan before he got cast, like, can you ride a bike can you swim, can you, etc. But I know I found out after he was cast, he was like, by the way, I've never ridden a bike, I can't swim, and I was like, great. So anyway, but
I wanted to be very honest before I got there. I was like, I don't swim. I can ride a bike, kind of, sort of. Like, I only pull it out sometimes. So.
But you did it, man. He totally jumped in and did it, and I mean in that way it was kind of a crash course for you, right? Because Jordan was a theater person. I keep saying I should have added a scene where Marcus is singing in the shower or something, because Jordan's voice is amazing, and it wasn't because I didn't know. I mean, amazing, yeah. So anyway, but that was his background, so it was like a crash course in you for filmmaking, right? Because it was like I remember at some point you were out in the woods with all the bugs, and you're like, there's so many bugs, and I was like, hey man, if the scene's in the woods and you're shooting a movie, you're in the woods. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I was toughing it. He was like, run. And I was like, oh, okay, we're running. Like, this is happening.
What about the shots when Marcus is in the river? Was that like tank work? Like, how did you guys do those shots?
No, it was really, so like I said, principal was basically the same spot. He's like almost waist deep in water. It was like, kind of thigh level. That was all real. And then we did do some pickup shots of some of the close shots of him and Caleb, who plays the Joe, who he's struggling with, was in a quieter section of river. We actually did the pickups in Baltimore. So that was actually the total river in Baltimore. And it was a little less shallow when we're kind of shooting like there, but they were in the water, they were splashing, they were, and when Marcus gets carried away,
right,
some shots of Jordan's face, close up, and that was close-ups in like a quiet section of river.
Oh, in the river. Wow.
It was in the river. Poor Jordan. We kept putting him under the water. It sounds like I'm torturing a child, and I guess on some levels I am, but professionally. So I'm sorry, Jordan, but it looks good. There was actually a stunt person taking a chair and not hitting him, but they were like paddling the water, like splashing him. So it's like Jordan's in the water being held by a stunt person, kind of holding him so that he can kind of be shaken, and then someone else like splashing him, and that's how we got those shots.
Awesome.
I mean, I've asked if anyone on YouTube has any burning questions. There are 2 remaining questions, but Alrik, I don't want to co-opt it if you want to.
Sure. Well, I'm going to ask Una a question then just about Holly and how she's a badass character and really takes charge and action in a lot of the movie. And I just wanted to know, did you have any inspiration for, bringing that character to life? Like, what did you draw from to kind of give her that energy?
I mean, I don't want to steal Julian's example, but I kind of felt a lot of Hermione vibes from her, and I would love to think that that kind of relationship existed in the movie. So I don't know, probably I'm trying to think specific. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure, but I do know that doing that scene in the hallway was I found out a lot about Holly, just doing that scene in the hallway where I freak out. That was one of the most fun scenes to shoot. And I think I got a lot of the strength, I'll do anything for my friends, from that scene.
I love the part in the movie where you come back from that scene and you join Marcus in his house, and it's just oh yeah, whatever, suspension, no big deal, or whatever it is, and it's just you didn't give a shit. You're did you get it? Did it work? It was fun.
Yeah.
All right, Liz, you want to hit us with one of your questions from the audience?
I'm trying to think of what the best. I'm going to go with this one. Today, what's your favorite moment between takes that you had on set?
Between takes, I mean, there were so many, because as you can tell, just spending a little time with everyone here, I mean, it was just such a great group of people. It was so much fun. And at some point, if y'all haven't done this yet, you have to listen to this, to Jordan saying, because that voice. Oh, I think I cut out. Okay, I'm back. But that voice is just stunning. And I don't know how it came about, but we ended up taking a picture. Do you remember this, Jordan? Taking a picture and sending it to Kristen Chenoweth.
I do remember this.
Yeah. And she wrote back, she was like, oh, he seems amazing. And it was a fun little moment of, I guess at that time, combining casts. But yeah, just any time behind the scenes with this group, it was really warm. It was really lovely. But that was one that stuck out. I still have that message back from her about how adorable you are.
I don't know what your next question is, guys, but I know I just love to hear, because I've never gotten really asked about it either. Yetide and Jordan talk about that relationship between Marcus and Alex and his mother. Because for me, writing it, that was such an important part of the story, was that relationship, and how, even though those outside pressures, how tight they are. But I mean, how was that for you guys to play? And I don't know, how did you how did you feel about it, or what did you kind of take from that, or whatever?
Jordan first, you go ahead.
On it.
Okay. I think we both kind of had an understanding of the importance of their relationship to the story, and the importance of how we had to play that together, and their togetherness and just their bond in general. It was really clear on the page. And when we met each other, we kind of clicked right away, and we both understood each other, and we got each other, and we bonded over Broadway and just different things that we were into. So I think it was super cool to kind of have her to kind of push me, like in the kitchen scene. We always talk about, every time I watch it, I'm always like, that scene is so good. And I love watching that scene. And it's just because Yetide was pushing me. She was pushing me and I was giving it back. And it was just so cool to kind of have a scene partner that you could play with and rely on to be there for you.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, from the get-go, I think you said that, that we just clicked pretty much immediately, and we understood each other. And what I loved about what you had written in here, Ben, was there was never any question about the love for her son. There was no question about it, as she would choose him over anything at any point. And I love that they even spoke about, the father and what was going on with that situation, but nothing else. Like this child is like, has its own gravitational pull, and basically orbit around him. So it was wonderful that we shared a lot of the same interests, and it was wonderful that, even though I didn't have a son, I felt like this was my child. Sorry, Jordan, I forever to this day, I'll say you're my screen son forever.
Same.
Well, we're at time. Oh, sorry. Please, you did it. Please continue.
No. Please go ahead.
Well, we're at time, so I just wanted to make sure that Ben shared with everyone who's listening how they could see all these amazing performances and check out the movie if they haven't somehow seen it, or to send it to friends.
Yeah, do you have any last questions? I know I have one more thing to talk about, but also if you guys have a last question, go for it. But yeah, in terms of the movie, yes, please, everyone watching, tell your friends, spread the word. It's a grassroots type release, so it's great to get the word out. And we listed in the description all the places it's out, but it's still in some theaters. It's in virtual theaters. It's also on demand, digital, and DVD. So basically on every service for on demand and all the major digital ones. So please, check it out and tell people if you like it.
I'm gonna steal Liz's thunder really quick, because I'm looking at the Zoom chat too, and I see a question that someone asked that I want to ask, and this is pretty much for all the cast. And so let's just start. Anyone can feel free to jump in, but were any parts of the film improvised, or did you guys all stay on script the whole time?
Oh, I know a moment that was improvised. There's a line where I say, I think he's saying something about how he stole his parents' weed, essentially. And I said, this is criminal behavior. That was what I said. That wasn't written. And there's a couple moments where I'm just fooling around, and I'm always like, oh, that's me. Instead of there being there's Marcus, I see little moments of Jordan coming through, and I'm it's super cool that Ben kept those.
Ben also said that, the scene when we were camping and setting up the tents and the campfire and everything, that was all just Ben, you said just go and try to set up the tent. Go and make a fire. You didn't filmed us while we did that. So that was all kind of improvised.
Yeah, in general, it's certain types of films, improvisation of dialogue makes sense, but because it was so tight and trying to keep it moving, it was in general it was all on script. But I always try to let the actors, as you know, the reason the moments that Jordan was talking about were just little moments where he just kind of tried something, and if it worked, you know, I put it in because it just adds a little bit of character. I mean, I kind of wish in some ways that we even had more, you know, I think Jordan and I talked about this. Like, it was Jordan's first film, and I think we both would go back and put even a little more of Jordan's personality into Marcus if we had, you know, had the chance. You know, he was nervous. It was his first film. It was, you know, I was, you know, there were a number of reasons why. But if I had to do it, if I could do it again, I'd go back and be like, let's put even more of Jordan Hall in Marcus Jackson.
Yeah, I love when you get to catch those moments of like your actor in a movie that you just see them come out in their character. And every time that happened in the movie I'm working on right now, I kept it too. So yeah, it's wonderful that happened.
Oh, and one more improvisation I just remembered was Brandon and the tater tot, which was totally Brandon, 100%, and it's 100% in the movie, and it's awesome. Do you remember that, Brandon?
I do remember that. Yeah, we were filming it and we shot it a couple times, and I think I just wanted to try something different, so I went up to him and I asked him to spit it out. And I tried holding it in so bad. At the end of that take, everybody just died laughing. When I finally saw it in the movie, I was like, yes, we kept it.
That was a really brilliant moment. As an audience member, I was just like, dude, this movie's wild. I love it.
And it's funny, we did it once and it was totally improvised, but then in the middle, I think Brandon and Eric, the other actor, cracked up. So the one that's in the movie is mostly, then we did it one more time kind of for coverage. So we did it like twice. And I think like the very beginning is from the first take. The rest of what's in the movie is from the second. And the reason why was they kind of stopped and cracked. Oh, no, that's what I was gonna say. The funny thing is he's like spit it out. And in one take, it's all chewed up and he spits out the chewed up thing in Brandon's hand. And the other take, it's kind of not chewed up and Eric takes it out of his own mouth or something like that. And the one that's in the movie is kind of the wrong one because I think it's the one where it's all chewed up and he spits it in Brandon's hand, which I thought was kind of badass that Clay was just like, yeah, spit it in my hand, I don't care. But the other one where like Eric does it himself worked even better, but then we couldn't use it because of like they cracked up right in the middle of it or something. So anyway, but it is funny because I don't know if the audience is ever like, why does he like, you know, let the guy spit it in his hand? But I just see it as Clay's badass and he's like, you know, he's just staring him down and he's like, put it in my hand, I don't care.
I love it.
Every friend of mine that's watched that moment has always been like, that's like the ultimate, like, you got sunned moment. Like, all of my friends are always like, he got so sunned in that moment. And I'm always like, yeah, it was really badass.
It was cool though, because like you said, Eric, he kind of just went with it. And I appreciate that, you know, because, you know, with improv, I've known a lot of people who just freeze up and they're like, what do we do? This isn't in the script, but he just went with it and it was awesome. Everybody who worked in the project just kind of like rolled with the punches and we all, I mean, as you can see, the movie turned out, in my opinion, to be great, you know, and Ben did a wonderful job, but it all starts with the writing. And then from there, we kind of make it our own. And he gave us the freedom to do so.
I don't know if you guys have a good last question, so I'll throw it to you last. I just have one more thing I'd love to ask them just about, and maybe this is what you're going to ask too, but just like, you know, just kind of what the movie meant to you and what you want audiences to take away from it. Because I always think that's something that I want to hear when I'm in the Q&A is like, you know, just, yeah, what it means to you, both being in it and kind of as a viewer and like, you know, what you kind of want people to take away from this movie when they see it.
One thing I loved is Mark is talking about standing up for what is right. This is a message that at any time is incredibly important, but I found it resonated particularly at this moment to see this coming of age story about young people learning to stand up against all odds for what they know is right. And then that will stick with me forever. So thanks for that, Ben.
No, thank you guys. That's, yeah. And that is a key. In the little description I had to write, I have to like write a description for the distributors. And that's literally, it's like, you know, when Marcus and Holly are at high school and this happens, they learn for the first time in their lives to stand up for what they believe is right. That's like literally in my little 1-page summary or like 1-paragraph summary. So I'm really glad you took that from that. And it's really important to me too. That was a key part of the story. So that's,
I think another thing that's great about this movie is that there's kind of at least one character for any audience member to relate to. There's many storylines that all kind of, you know, mesh at the end, but throughout the movie, you have that person. I think everyone kind of has a person that they can relate to and kind of follow more closely. And that's just something I noticed when I watched it that I thought was pretty cool.
I feel like for me, the maybe redemption. It's never too late to kind of change your ways or to try and, you know, be better. You know, yeah, you might have made mistakes in the past, but, you know, it's never too late to try and just do what's right. And I think that that's what happens with Clay's character. In the beginning, you know, he gets involved in things that he's not too proud of, but at the end, you know, he does what's right and he stands by the kids and whatnot. So maybe redemption is one of the biggest themes that I took away from this film.
For me, it's kind of, I love the fact that kind of along the lines of what Yetide was saying, it's kind of like not underestimating the power of young people and the power that they can bring to things. And when they see that something's wrong, like they can take charge and they can lead it. Because at the end of the day, we all know that we're kind of in a broken place in our country right now, and we need the younger people to fix it. We need people that are coming after us to fix it. And I think Marcus, Holly, and Grant kind of leading the charge is such a powerful thing, especially at this time.
Well said.
Yeah, and I guess I would add on to that. I think like three young people and I think like Marcus and Holly, especially, like them coming together and realizing the importance of this and realizing that they need each other to do it at all. Like I think they need that like camaraderie and like I got you. And yeah, I think that was big thing for me too.
So Ben, you got to answer the question too, man. What does the movie mean to you, and what do you want people to take away when they see it?
I think it is. Damn, I have to follow all that. You know,
yeah.
No, I mean, I think it is about. I've been thinking about it for 4 years, so now I'm like, how can I put it in summary? I think what everyone said is right. I think that. It's a hard thing to kind of stand up for what you believe in and stand up for. It's a hard thing to do the right thing, you know? And sometimes it comes from the least expected place too. I think, you know, the reason Marcus is who he is, he's young, he's kind of nerdy. I think one thing I believe in is that, you know, heroes don't have to be superheroes. That often the most heroic thing is when, you know, for lack of a better word, regular people stand up for what's right. And so, there's a reason Marcus is who he is, you know, and that's kind of what I think nerds bring to the world sometimes is, you know, they're not the strongest, the broadest shoulders or the, you know, the whatever, the coolest and, you know, I'm trying to think of words I say without like, you know, saying the wrong thing, you know, but they're often people who care about stuff that nobody else cares about. And that's kind of what happens in this movie is Cassie goes missing and, you know, there's so much going on in the world that not everyone's really paying attention and really digging into it. And obviously with the cop storyline, there are also some reasons, some corruption reasons why it's not being looked into totally too. But Marcus cares. Marcus just sees this very simple thing of like, she was nice to me. She was a good person to me and to other people. And she's gone missing and somebody needs to do something about it. And if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to stand up and do it. And so for me, that's kind of the main thing you take away from the story is that, you know, it's a hard thing to do, but it's and often there are consequences and maybe a cost, but it's the right thing to do. And I think that's kind of the main theme. And also I think what Brandon was saying about redemption is also with the mole, we don't have Liz or James here right now, but with the kind of cop storyline too, there's definitely some stuff there about what it means to be a good cop and serve your community and what it means to kind of stand up for what's right there as well. And so I think there's a thread that goes through several different storylines where certain characters stand up for what's right in key moments, just because, you know, not because it's the convenient thing to do, but because it's the right thing to do. And that does make for a better, you know, a better community.
Nice. So Ben, one more time, where can people watch this movie? Where should they go right now if they haven't seen it yet? Tell everybody.
On demand, it's on every cable service. So you got, you know, your I got the list here. You got your DirecTV, Dish, Comcast, Spectrum, Verizon, FIOS. Digitally, it's on iTunes, Vudu, Amazon, Fandango Now, Google Play, Xbox, YouTube Movies. The DVD will be available at all the major retailers, and it's also still in theaters in Massachusetts, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and virtual theaters in lots of other places. Philadelphia Film Society just added it. So it's in a bunch of different virtual theaters as well. So really just, you know, support your local theater if you can, or from the safety of your home, go check it out on all the digital services, and keep engaging with us online. We'd love to hear what you think. You can, our social media is also, or if it's not here, I'll add it. But our social, we have all the social media platforms. So we're here to, say hey and continue the conversation. And I really hope people enjoy the movie. That's why we made it. We made it for years, to bring it out to people and just have them enjoy it and be moved by it and, engage with it.
But basically, there's no excuse not to watch this film because it's on every platform.
Basically, yeah.
Well, just want to thank the amazing cast of What We Found for joining us today and for being a part of this amazing Q&A. So thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and then lastly, if you don't know who we are, Liz and Alrik of Making Movies is Hard, you can find our podcast at www.makingmoviesishard.com. We do a show every week. We've been going for over 5 years now. I think episode 270 just came out. So
congrats.
If you want to hear about making movies and how hard it is, jump over there. And we're going to have Ben on as a future guest too, in addition to this bonus episode, because this will be an episode that everybody in our podcast, will hear, our whole audience. But we want to do another one later just to get really into the nitty gritty of this movie and all his other movies too. But yeah, I don't know, anything else to add, anybody, or how are we doing here?
Yeah, we have a final thing to add. Jump on in.
We're late. Let's go. Sorry, would anyone else want to say anything?
I think through this film and working with every single one of you guys, like I've become like somewhat of a fan of like your guys' work, like from like what you've done in the past to what you'll do in the future. Like today, we were watching This Is Us, my fiance and I, a couple months ago. And there you were. And I was like, oh my God, honey, that's I worked with her. So like for the rest of my life, I will be a fan of every single one of your guys' work because you guys, were such a pleasure to work with. So I'll never forget that.
Well, that's the same. I'm just going to steal those words, but right back at you and all of you. It was truly a pleasure.
Well, and tell you what, I'll we'll end the stream, but we can stay on for like 2 minutes and, and say goodbyes, not having to keep everyone on YouTube watching. But yeah, so I'll click end stream in a second. And yeah, I just wanted to say also, thanks to everyone out there watching, and thanks to all of you guys for coming and chatting with us. And thanks to Liz and Alrik for hosting and guiding the conversation. All right, I'll end it.
Yay.